we'll jump right back in with movement. Movement is a scout's bread and butter and essentially consists of using all your class advantages while moving to dodge enemy spam and use the natural terrain to your advantage. The clip we have for you is of my team moving on a spire while it's just begun to be defended. We send Toaster up spire and around to confuse the soldier while one of our own jumps the spire. And Kainu calls out for assistance on the left resupply flank, so Toaster cancels his loop to jump down and assist him, while the rest of the team moves forward. Toaster then backs off to get aid, while Kainu presses inside to catch any retreating enemy players. He spots the demo, who barricades himself in, so he simply calls him out and ignores him, and returns outside to respond to a call for a scout on the Great Bridge.
Alert! The control point is being contested.
The next small scout tip I have would be footing. It's very minor, but if you take one look at the developer's commentary, you'll see that a lot of the maps, including player-generated maps, were made with the scout in mind, so subconsciously keeping the small positions like the tiny rock formations and badlands in your mind will allow you to dodge certain spam and position yourself better than most standard scout players who wouldn't be paying attention to them. In this clip we have my scout Toaster doing his best to pressure a soldier who's getting too aggressive, and once he gets shot he back strafes onto his proper footing and retreats through the footing holes on badlands up to the back bridge to get away from them. So yeah. The next tip I have for any new or old scouts is greed. Getting greedy is something you see a lot less in higher tier teams, but it is a common problem across the board, and greed is essentially, you go in, you get a pick, you're excited, you continue forward. By and large, that is the biggest mistake some scouts can make, because the minute you drop someone, even if someone dropped on your team, there's complaints across the board about how you just got killed, so generally the enemy team does their best to address you more and more the more you get picks and the more you perform plays, and without the backing of your team saying, we're going to rush in with our scouts, you're not meant to be there hammering away at the team, and more often than not it'll cause you to, pick off an enemy scout and then get killed yourself, and it's an equal trade-off, and it's almost as though you shouldn't have even moved, you could have just stayed at your resupply. But the clip we have for you about greed is my scout Toaster doing his best to cover flank by himself and just scout out things, and he starts to notice more and more that their scouts play a little bit disconnected, so he falls back to the combo for an overheal to balance it out between the two of them, then jumps in using his footing from the last segment, obviously, to pick off one of them, and without getting greedy he begins to back off and return to the combo, so it gives us a slight advantage. The next tip is listening. Listening is important for any class on any team, but it is especially important when scouting, because more often than not a push consists of your team's heavy classes, leaving you on cleanup, addressing the flanks and the stragglers, so keeping your ears wide open to what's happening will allow you to pull off some amazing plays. The two clips I have for you is both of Toaster listening to the call and waiting on the right flank. As we target the heavy, we communicate that he's backing off to the right, and Toaster responds by moving in and killing the lit heavy, and then proceeding to rush the cap. The second clip is of a play where we faked an aggressive forward just to drop off the demo and move back. During that time they fell for it and the heavy pushed on us, so we called out to Toaster that the point was unattended, and he went through the flank for a back cap. A scout is nothing without its buddy. Some of the best plays I've ever seen in TF2 are plays where both scouts are working together in synchronization. For the two clips that we have, we will be more intensely viewing two previous clips, those being the hammering and picking clips from part 1 of this series. For the first clip we have Toaster targeting and hammering a demo man. As we quick stack the cap, Toaster and Kainu decide to pull a pinch play on the retreating combo. Kainu comes in on the right and distracts while Toaster moves in from the flank and the retreating combo gets outmaneuvered, and the pocket soldier ends up dying. In the second clip, we have Toaster picking off a demo man. As he called out his play, he mentions the additional soldier, so he runs past them both as Kanu comes up from the rear to hammer off the distracted soldier, allowing Toaster to escape and to set up on the Spire for a quick cap and move on to last. The concept of support is that you are a team. As such, you should be relaying everything you're doing to your team, and likewise your teammates should be interpreting this information that you're sending them. With that in mind, moving forward, the support range for your team is generally half the length of 2 points, so you never really want to extend past that if you're looking for support. With that in mind, I'll show you 3 clips of my scouts using the half-point distance theory to push forward, and in times of danger request support from a multitude of classes. For the first clip, we have Toaster pushing towards Spire after a failed last push. He calls out that the combo is on Grey Bridge and frames them into a box as our demo comes to address them. With our demo pushing the combo back, Toaster moves up to Spire, during which time 2 scouts begin to aggress on him. Now, Toaster, keeping in mind the sights of our demo men, frames them onto the right side of the Spire with the demo men's line of sight in mind and calls for support. The second clip, we have Toaster moving up to respond to a call for support on battlements from our demo, who was pushing back theirs. He aggresses and finds himself in a bit of trouble, and calls for support from our demo men again, whom then lays down some spam in the direction that Toaster called out. The third clip is of our scout in a pecking battle on Spire. To ensure that the enemy scouts didn't position themselves on top of Spire and then have the ability to jump our combo on Grey Bridge, they called out for support on Spire, and a soldier jumped up to prevent them from moving forward. The ideology behind support is that, keeping in mind this half-point distance, any class, whether it be a demoman, whose arc can allow him to spam any position within a half-point range, or a soldier who could respond with a single jump in a half-point range to assist you as a scout. The last and final tip would be off-classing, and although there is too much to cover in off-classing, and it will be available in another video of the competitive series, we will go into it a little bit, and basically, you should off-class when the situation arises, because generally most other classes are considered off-classes because they only fit a narrow situation in which they can be used in a competitive scene, because the soldier, scout, demoman are all formidable classes whose speed, damage, and location are all dependent upon the player's skill. As such, the game can move incredibly quicker, and a team can be incredibly more powerful with these 4 cookie-cutter classes. So generally you only off-class when the situation arises and the class has an overwhelming advantage, as opposed to the traditional classes. The first clip we have is just a continuation of the second, but it's basically of Toaster cycling around Kanu on Sniper and trying to lure someone out onto the last point for a headshot. Nothing happens, however, and he continues to defend him. He relays that to me. We set up a play for him to go to the right side with our demo men and draw them in on last as Kanu frames out and supports him with his sniper rifle. As such, Toaster draws their demoman down onto the point. He gets shot in the head, and their scout does, and we proceed to cap from there. With that said, that's all there is to it for the Scout Guide. I hope it helps you in some way. If it does, go to communityfortress.com, xtelevision.com, or tfgn.org and post up. We'd be happy to hear from you. We'd be happy to receive donations across the board. This is Forsaken, signing off.